Yes, you see Bob Ehalt. You know, it's time for the Belmont Stakes. Welcome in, Horse Racing Happy Hour, hanging out with Steve Kornacki and Bob Ehalt. I am Louis Rabeau. Terrible music, fantastic podcast. Appreciate everybody hanging out with us here on the show today. One of my very favorite cards of the year this weekend, Bob. I think, frankly, of Belmont Day on the same kind of level of a Derby Day, of frankly like a Breeders' Cup Friday or Saturday, something like that. A ton of great ones to get into. Well, happy Belmont to you and happy Saratoga, Bob. How are you?
I'm doing well. Beautiful up here. The weather's being beautiful. I mean, boy, I wish, hope this continues. I hear it might get a little bit warmer, but that's fine. Better that than the rain. Let's, as I say, the skies are looking good, though. Here in Saratoga, you take nothing for granted.
All right. I have seen pictures, at least, of young Steve Kornacki. And by young, I mean, I think he's like a year younger than me, running around near the picnic tables at Saratoga. Will you be doing that this weekend, my friend?
I'm in New York City. I'm staying here. I'm going to watch it on television. And I'll be up at Saratoga later on this summer. But
all right. I was going to say, I know we can count on that for sure. Steve's annual séjour to Saratoga. And Bob, I wanted to ask you before we got into too much handicapping or anything else. We're putting a wrap on 3 years of holding this week of racing there at Saratoga. Obviously, a headline could be made this coming weekend at some point, should a Golden Tempo win or something like that. But, just this experience of the last couple of years, you've been around New York racing for a long time. What do you think we'll remember from these trips to Saratoga?
Well, I think what you might wind up remembering, I mean, there is an excitement here at Saratoga, how the people love horse racing. The track was, crowded, electric, things like that. I mean, this was really the best choice NYRA could have done. I mean, had they tried to do a Belmont Stakes at Aqueduct like they did in the 60s, that would have been a disaster. This was really, I think it was a fun experience. I know look, it's a little easier on certain people. I mean, for horsemen to come up and come down. But nowadays, so many of these horsemen are already having stables here at Saratoga that it's not as hard as it was. Logistically, for the NYRA staff, it's a little different. But I just think people will kind of remember a little bit of the electricity here at the racetrack. And I am sure if they had to stay somewhere, they're going to remember the prices that they got charged in the hotels.
Yeah, it's a little bit of the Kentucky Derby treatment there at Saratoga for these weekends with the
and then some
is probably correct. Yeah, it's a pretty remarkable thing. How about for you, Steve? Is there anything that you'll remember in particular? Obviously we're doing this as well with the Preakness. And Bob, I'd love to know if you think that a Belmont at Aqueduct would be a bit like the Preakness we just had at Laurel, but I digress a little bit. Steve, anything stand out to you from these last couple of years?
Well, I think just that we've kind of been in this period, I think, a transition for the whole Triple Crown series and all the questions about where it's kind of going. And so I'm just curious, they go back to Belmont, Park, and they go back to 1.5 miles, how that shift from 1.25 miles the last 3 years, which I think maybe has incentivized even more skipping the Preakness and sort of, pointing to the Belmont, all right, does that shift things back a little bit? Are there other changes too that come with that maybe beef up the Preakness a bit and get this Triple Crown going again?
Back to Baltimore, back to New York City next year for both of those Triple Crown races. I think we'll be dealing with an unfinished Pimlico, but hopefully a very, very finished Belmont Park by the time we get there in June of next year. Steve, you picked Elvis last time you were on this show, and last full episode, I should say, on this show. You've been very kind to pop by, say, at Laurel Park or whatever it might be. Are you still riding that high, or can we, unlike Ceiling Crusher, who took a little time for you to get off that schneid afterward, are you going to give us more winners today? Because that would be really lovely. Elvis,
I got.
There it is. Hey,
had to drive all the way down to Laurel, Maryland to pick it up, but I was happy to. I got to get that thing framed. I should probably retire from releasing picks on your show. A 12-1 winner who probably had everything break his way that day, but I'll always have that now instead of just Ceiling Crusher.
You'll always be able to say, I picked Elvis the last time he won a race. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. All right. I'm kidding. All right. Well, up there at Saratoga, his name's Bobby Hall. He's from Bloodhorse, bloodhorse.com for everything he's working on. And of course, Steve gets the weekend off, so he does not have to go up and hang out at the Belmont Stakes. So he hangs out with us. Instead, a fun pick six on this day. And by the way, if you do not know your takeout rates in New York, they have some of the very best on Win Place and Show Bets. So my suggestion is always play winners when you play in New York for sure. Solid 15% on the pick 5 and pick 6 as well. So let's get into it. The True North will kick off the stakes portion of the card on Saturday at Saratoga, of course, on Belmont Day. Race 8 there. We begin that pick 6 here in this race. $400,000 on the line, a grade 3 at 6.5 furlongs. And Bob, this was the start of something that I don't know we had any idea was about to happen, but Bookham Dano won this race last year and went on to sweep the 3 summer sprints at Saratoga last year. He got a second or third place. I cannot remember top of my head. A Clips vote for me out of that because I was so impressed with him sweeping those races last summer. What do you remember from that run last summer from Bookham Dano?
He was just very, very impressive. Look, he loves Saratoga. I mean, he's got you look at the record, he's won 4 out of 5 starts, 1/3. He was just very impressive, very game. It was kind of, there's a little bit of sadness. He didn't go to the Breeders' Cup, but certainly he loves Saratoga. I think he's going to be very, very hard to beat in the spot on Saturday.
A disappointing second in the Carter, Steve, last time that we saw Bookham Dano. Are you holding the Aqueduct thing against him, or are you looking more, hey, I know the record at Saratoga with this guy?
Yeah, no, I mean, to hear his trainer talk, he says he didn't have him, fully cranked that day, coming in off the layoff, kind of, I think with this race more in mind. So of anything that would concern me with Bookham Dano, I don't think it's the Aqueduct race.
Who did you land on here, Steve?
So this is interesting. It's a little contingent, I guess, as we tape this, because what I've been seeing, and maybe Bob can speak to this, but what I think I've been seeing in these first couple of days up at Saratoga is a track that's kind of favoring the speed, favoring the rail. And I know Bookham Dano didn't go out to the Breeders' Cup last year to run against Ben Tornado, in part because they thought the track was speed favoring. So I am kind of wondering, despite the history at Saratoga, if this is going to continue into the weekend. And so it's pushing me to where I didn't want to go. I love Bookham Dano. I love the horse. I want to be for the horse. But I think what I'm seeing so far really has me thinking Ben Tornado is the way to go.
Ben Tornado very likely to get the lead here. Bob, is he the favorite on Saturday, you think?
I don't know. I think, he's certainly, I know I saw that he was the favorite in the morning line. I mean, I think people know the experience that Bookham Dano has. Steve was right with the track. Yesterday, it did seem if you were on the inside, and I went through a situation in the next to last race where I had a 30-1 shot. It was on the rail, and then he gave up the rail on the stretch and got beat by a horse that came inside him. Today hasn't been about the same on the rail. I think speed is still doing well. But I don't think it's basically get to the rail and the race is over. There's been horses. There was a horse in the 2 races ago on the dirt who came flying at the end, which I hadn't seen a lot of so far. But I think you could kind of comfortably sit off a horse in the 2-path. It favors speed. But I'm going to go with Bookham Dano, if only because, Ben Tornado, he's coming back off a race where he was in Dubai. You just don't know how horses react to that. Sometimes it takes a couple of races for them to regain their form. Whereas I think Bookham Dano had the perfect setup in the Carter to be ready for this. He loves the track. He's got the experience over it. I think it's hard to go past Bookham Dano. And plus, I think what generally happens a lot is on these big days, the track maintenance crews, they really do try to come up with a fair surface. So I think what we maybe saw on Wednesday, a little bit today, I think it'll start even out as we go. I mean, the good part of this is the 8th race at Saratoga, so you will have some other races on Saturday to judge what happens.
For sure. Ben Tornado will break from the 3, Bookham Dano from the 6. If you were looking outside of those 2, Steve, where do you think you would end up landing?
Yeah, Imagination's the other one. I'm curious about. Of course, I think that coming out of that Churchill Downs race on Derby Day, where you saw T.O. Elvis with really, in some ways, the performance of the day. So just like a brutally difficult spot. I think a horse who was closing in the sprint last year against Ben Tornado, again, on a day and a track where that's a tough thing to do. And I think Imagination has a big win in him in it, and I'm interested to hear what Bob's saying, because when I say some of this is contingent, that's it. I want to see how this kind of evolves, over the next, 2 days here, how that track evolves. But Imagination's one I'm interested in.
Yeah, Baffert bringing a big string to Saratoga for the weekend. Bob, is there someone outside of the top 2 that you're interested in?
Yeah, I think imagination is going to be a main player. I mean, and I think you saw if you look at him, he had the race where he went to Saudi Arabia, and then he really didn't fire a big race in the Churchill Downs. So kind of showing the thing what I was saying with Ben Coronado. The one that I would go with to kind of maybe on the other, I was a little intrigued with Luminaire. I think he's really a big race last time. Sometimes I wonder about bounces, but sometimes when you get a trainer like a Todd Pletcher, Bob Baffert, these kind of trainers, when the horse shows that big number, it's not like this was a knockout for them. This is a sign the horse was getting better. So, he's had some good numbers before. He might be interesting, and he would definitely be a legitimate 10-1 in the field.
I'm interested in BU in here. The 7 horse is my third in the handicapping, went 3-6-7 for me. John Velasquez keeps them out here coming out of that Knicks go at Churchill, which I think was just a little bit too far for this horse. I think going a mile is not what he wants to do. If we can get back to that toboggan form that we saw in February, I think we'll get a bit of a better showing from him. This pick 5 then starts here in race 9 with the grade 1 Jaipur, 5.5 on the Bougie Melon Turf Course. And by the way, I don't know why there's multiple turf courses at Saratoga. If you have something called the Melon Turf Course, that's what you use. By the way, Churchill Downs, you have the Matt Winn Turf Course. You should call it that every single time the horses walk onto it, even though you don't. We're going 5.5. We're running for $500,000 here, Bob. This is a race, by the way, that we have seen, including AG Bullet last year, Caravel, Alexandra, female winners of this race. Does AG Bullet make it another one?
Certainly. I mean, look, she won the race last year. I think she's in good form. She ended out the year well. As I say, when I say good form, she's working out very well to get ready for this race. She certainly is a really top-notch filly sprinter on the turf. I think the conditions kind of suit her a bit here. She should get I think things can work out for her. I think she's the one to beat in this field. I would say that. I think, she's just a 6-year-old that keeps going. And like I say, she's certainly, from what I see in the works, I don't think age is starting to catch up with her.
How about for you, Steve? Who'd you land on here in the Jaipur?
Yeah, I mean, this was just like a brutally difficult one to try to single down, and it kind of had me thinking. I'm like, there's so many plausible, ways to go right here. Do you go for kind of try to look for a bit of a price here, and I think that's what I'll do for the top pick, which would be number 8, John the Beer Man, who I think there's a ton of upside on. Obviously, it's a huge step up here. But I think also has the potential. I know with Kendrick Carmouche, it's drawn a bit outside, but does have the potential to be the speed here. I don't see a ton of that, a ton of early speed in here. So I'm sort of taking a chance here that there's upside with this horse. There's really been nothing to complain about in his performance in the 2 races back since a long break. And can he get to the lead here? And can he maybe get a little brave on that lead? And at a big price, I mean, it's 10-1 in the morning line. And I wonder again, with all these other possibilities in here, if that even floats up a little bit. So I'll make that my top pick.
Yeah, John the Beer Man's an interesting one for me. I like a horse 2 outside of him and My Boy Prince. I think he's going to use him as a guide, kind of sit off of him, make his best run late. And I will warn people, this is very much a Louis saw this horse in person bias pick here. But I saw that horse both at Keeneland and at Churchill Downs in grade 2s, winning the Shakertown and then just missing in the turf sprint last time at Churchill Downs, just running out of his mind right now. So I'll ride the hot hand there with Jose Ortiz as well. I think My Boy Prince one to absolutely watch in here. Bob, I wanted to ask you about Refrunner, another one that's coming back from the Arabian Peninsula, but has been at Saratoga before. David Fox brings this one here for Irad Ortiz Jr. I think he makes a lot of logical sense as well.
He does. Again, you get into the question of how is he going to make that transition from being in Saudi Arabia and Dubai to here. I'm not sure. I mean, certainly if he runs back to those 2 races, I mean, this race is his to win. He has Irad on him. I'm just not sure, David Fawkes, is he that experienced with dealing with that kind of situation of having a horse, getting a horse? How do you get him to readjust to being back in the United States, back in different weather conditions and things like that? So, I don't think it's a horse you could ignore. I'm not really completely sold, even though I think as I say, if you take those two sprint races in over in Dubai and Saudi Arabia, he's going to be very tough. I thought that if there's an interesting long shot to me, I was kind of interested. Want to take a better look at Governor Sam from the rail.
Just going to ask you. Yep.
I think he's this was a horse that showed a lot of promise at 3. They brought him in the Breeders' Cup Sprint, turf sprint, and maybe it was a bit ambitious for him at the time, especially at the end of his 3-year-old season. They put him in a synthetic race to prep him, and I got to think that was really just a workout. He closed ground, closed ground. I don't know. I could see this horse maybe being ready from the rail, and with Paco, who will be aggressive with him, going out and getting position and being maybe hanging around and getting into the picture at a pretty good price.
15-1 on the morning line there. Paco Lopez for George Weaver. Steve, I saw you nodding as well. I imagine you agree about Governor Sam.
It's exact. Yeah, I was trying to think there, not seeing too much early speed. Could it be Governor Sam? Could it be John the Beer Man? So no, I like that a lot.
Yeah, once in a while that inside post does work out in a sprint. What do you make of litigation here, Steve? The 3-horse Brian Lynch trains. This is one that's never been to Saratoga, but 6 wins in 12 runs the last 2 years. Essentially started with a bang with a bunch of very good runs as a 4-year-old here. I saw this one almost pick off the Shakertown before oh my gosh, the blanket of blankets in the turf sprint there during Derby week. What do you make of litigation here?
Yeah, he's my second pick in this race, because I thought in that, on that Derby day race there, he was wide. He was wide. I think he was a path wider than the winner, and I think you could make an argument that made the difference. My boy Prince was in there too. My boy Prince, had had a much better trip, I think, kind of on the saving ground around the turn, popping out, coming very late. But I thought he had the worst trip of the ones from that race coming back into this, and gets I think a much better post right here and a better chance.
Another pick 5 opportunity here. The late pick 5 starts in race 10. It is the grade 1 Woody Stevens. We're going 7 furlongs on the dirt there at Saratoga. $500,000 on the line in here. And horses that you'll know, because they may have been attempting the Triple Crown and have now landed in this race, including Preakness alum Taj Mahal, who will break from the 9 from the outside. Englishman you may have seen in the Pat Day Mile right behind the very likely favorite in here, and his name, of course, is Crude Velocity. Steve, I go to you first here. Are we going to try to beat Crude Velocity in the Woody Stevens?
Gosh, I wish I was creative and brave enough to tell you I was. I think what we saw was very real in that Pat Day Mile. And, the only thought I had here, again, along the lines of what we were talking about earlier with the way the track had been playing a little bit so far, was, would it give Englishman a chance to hold that speed? Because he lasted till the final furlong in the in the Pat Day Mile. So a bit of thought here of that super fast early speed gets the lead, and if this track is carrying him at all, I've got that thought in my head a little bit, but I just think ultimately Crude Velocity is the real deal.
Crude Velocity, I think the pretty obvious class in here, Bob. But if we were going to beat that horse, and I should ask if you're going to try to, but if we were trying to beat it, who would we try to beat Crude Velocity with?
I think you'd have a tough. I think the obvious one, if you're going to try to beat Crude Velocity, who I do like, it would be Englishman. That was exactly like what Steve said. You're dropping back to 7 furlongs. If there is an inside speed bias and he can outbreak Crude Velocity and get inside, that could help him. But I would think if you're going to look for an upset, it's going to have to be somebody who is going to benefit from them too, running themselves into the ground. So perhaps the one I think that might be the best one might be Obliteration. He's going to be inside. He'll be able to probably sit off them. I think he's got some speed, but I certainly don't see him being up there in a pace stool with them. He ran a pretty good race in the Chick Lang. He was much the best in that race, but got a good figure. I think he'll be able to sit behind those two. And if those two really get a bit funky on the front end, maybe he's the one who goes by them.
I'm interested in 6 speed in this race. And I'm interested for a lot of reasons, but this is a horse that I watched at Maidan in that 2000 Guineas trial at 7 furlongs. He was really good under Bill Buick. I get Irad here. Barcelona aboard for that ride in the mile over the one turn at Maidan in the following of the 2000 Guineas itself. Another win there, and frankly, easy wins in those races. Now, those weren't as fast as he's going to need to be at Saratoga, but frankly, we all know that course there at Maidan significantly deeper than what he's going to get at Saratoga. I have him second in I think 6-3 is my exacta play here because I think 6-speed has the speed to go with Crude Velocity. I just think he isn't as classy. And so I'm fascinated to see him here. I love that 10-1 price. I don't know how much of that we're actually going to get in this spot. Obviously, he's leaving Bupont Seamar's barn to join George Weaver's. But, this one is a really, really interesting one to me. Steve, do you have a read at all on 6-speed here?
No, I looked at him too. I was interested too. I'm interested. I will use a backup or something here in some of these with a horse coming off the bat. The one that I end up going with that would be my backup would be Gilded Bandit, the one here. Just, kind of winning now twice off the pace. The horse he beat breaking his maiden at Keeneland came back and I think won by like 8 lengths or 7 lengths or something in the next race. So I think that was an impressive win. Look, if this thing does heat up and he can close at Saratoga, that's the one I want.
Obliteration is in here as well, Bob, and I wanted to ask you about Obliteration just because this is one that we saw in the Chick Lang. Steve Asmussen so often uses Maryland as the launch to other races for lots of his horses. We don't always see his 3-year-olds in this kind of race, but man, when I think sprinting, I think Steve Asmussen for sure. What do you make of Obliteration shot here? I wouldn't be stunned at all if he wins.
No. As I mentioned, I think he's the one who can sit off the pace a little just behind the top 2, let them duel. Maybe 6-speed is going to be in with them. I think kind of the hard part when you see a horse like 6-speed, yes, he set a fast pace in the Derby, but where is it like the fractions he set will not get him near the lead in a race like this. So if he is going to be up near the front, he's going to have to go a little bit faster through that. But I think an Obliteration just might be able to sit, as I say, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and get be on the inside. Same thing with Gilded Bandit, and maybe make a run. And I will point out for 6-speed, I remember in the I believe it was the 1986 Derby and Preakness, the pace setter was a horse named Groovy, who became a champion sprinter. So it can happen just because the trainer's running you 1.25 miles in the first Saturday of May doesn't mean you may not want to run 3/4 of a mile in October. So we'll see.
Hey, good last place finisher of the Kentucky Derby's name was Whitmore. Things worked out okay for that guy. So yeah, there you go. We move on to the first leg of the All Stakes. Pick 3 here starts with the Met Mile, the Metropolitan Handicap. It is a $1 million race. They are going 1 mile. And Bob, I wanted to ask you about the layout of this race itself because we are still at Saratoga for this thing. It is not the traditional 1 mile that we get at Belmont. Frankly, looking at this card reminded me of how many of these races, Bob, are meant for that Belmont layout. Right. When you look at these, the Manhattan, for example, coming up next is one of those races where you have to be at Belmont for that race to make sense over the 12 furlongs. They usually run that thing at, the 10 furlongs. But, the Met Mile itself, journalism draws the outside, and this is a horse that's trying to get on the winning side of the ledger in 2026. How detrimental is breaking from the 7 for a horse like journalism?
I think it's a tough assignment for him. Look, this shoot is quirky. Most horsemen do not like it, especially for the dirt horses, meaning that it basically was created off the thought that if you have 1.16 turf race that has to be run on the dirt course, you move there. Because, again, here at Saratoga, you can go 7 furlongs and then a 1.1 miles. So the shoot was kind of created for these off the turfers. Now, when you move the Belmont Stakes up here, you have these prestigious a mile race like the Met Mile, and it's basically a thing where you run straight and then you make a sharp left bank, And sometimes if you have inside speed, that really helps you. But it can be a very quirky trip. And there's some trainers, like, they just don't want to be, they just don't like it. I think for a horse like Journalism, going this mile with the pace that it's going to be there, I think he's going to get caught wide, and he's going to have a little bit of a tough trip to overcome. And there's some good horses in there. Nisos, hey, he gave a good battle to Forever Young. I mean, we all know how good he is, and I think and Knightsbridge is a nice horse. So I do think I think Journalism is going to have this is going to be a tough assignment for him.
I agree. By the way, the Met Mile is the first of the New York handicap triple, along with the Suburban and the Brooklyn. The 4 triple winners. How about this? 1913 Whisk Broom 2, Tom Fool 1953, Kelso in 1961. You may have heard of those horses. And then, Bob, I need to ask you about the 4th winner of this. It's Fit
to Fight.
Okay.
Fit to Fight.
Where are all of the? I looked this horse up. He sired like 36 stakes winners or something. Like, where are all the races for this guy? What are we doing?
Fit to Fight was a Mac Miller Rokeby horse, a really good game competitive horse. So yeah, he had that really good year, and I love the Rokeby horses. I love Mac Miller's training. So when you were going to say who was the 4th, I was going to say, all right, if it's a trivia question, I'll make it bet I know this one without going to my laptop. But yeah,
I'm telling you,
I was there when he won the Met. I watched him win the Met Mile.
There you go. All right. Well, Steve, I've got Nisos on top in this race from the inside. And one of the reasons is if he was swap spots with Journalism, I would probably have Journalism higher up in my handicapping. However, I do not. I have Nisos on top here. Steve, where did you land in the Met Mile?
Yeah, I kind of felt the same. When I first saw Journalism was going to be in the race, I kind of liked the idea of the cutback, and I kind of wanted to win.
I don't hate the idea at all. Yeah.
Yeah, for the same reasons. Yes, I didn't have going there. I'm going to go with number 3, Antiquarian, who I like. I think there's a versatility. I think he can establish good position. Bob was kind of outlining the unique challenge of it. I think he can establish good position. And I think this is a horse who's really kind of just developed and matured into the. I think he's got a very big performance. Waiting potentially. He had that nice prep in that 4-horse race in the Westchester. But I thought it was a really good prep for this, and I think he could be in very good position here.
I love this. I was texting with a couple buddies prepping for this show, and I said, random thought, is Antiquarian a way better horse than we think he is? Because, Steve, you're right. If you draw a line essentially through the Breeders' Cup Classic, what is there not to like about this guy? And certainly at Saratoga, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm with you, man. Okay. All right. Bob, I don't know that I'm all the way there on Antiquarian. I think I have him like 6th in my handicapping. That's what I think of this field, frankly, in this version of the Met Mile. I've got Nisos on top. Who do you have on top?
Well, I like Nisos. I will say I was going to go with him top. I probably will wind up 2nd. The one I might want to take a chance on, I want to see the odds, Knightsbridge. Talking to Belmont, he doesn't know what went wrong at Churchill Downs. When a guy like Belmont is a little surprised, it may have just been the horse wasn't feeling great that day. He doesn't see anything telling him that the horse has gone downhill, and he hit his knockout number, and he's starting to regress a bit. If he goes back to his race in the Gulfstream Park Mile, he's going to be very, very tough to beat. So I'm going to like to see how the odds play out, but I think I'm expecting a better performance from Knightsbridge, because I have faith that if Belmont felt the horse went wrong, this horse wouldn't be running here.
All right, Steve, I am fascinated because I think had they left the horse here, Vibe would have won this past weekend. In a grade 3, he would have been ready for the Stephen Foster, but instead, Todd Pletcher opting to put him in the Met Mile this weekend up there at Saratoga. Because of that, I have gone ahead and put Vibe 2nd in my handicapping because I don't know what else to do with the information. I'm going to go ahead and trust that Todd Pletcher knows what he's doing here. Why the heck do you think this horse is here instead of at Churchill?
I have no idea. It surprised me, and it completely blew up that race last weekend. Yeah, I have no idea, and I guess my reaction is maybe the opposite of yours.
Okay.
In terms of like, yeah, I've been pretty dismissive of him in here. He's one. I was having a hard time going through it. Famous last words here, but he was the one I was a little more confident in kind of working around.
The other one I wanted to ask about, Bob, is Saudi Crown. I want to like this horse, but every time he gets to something that's better than a grade 3, it just doesn't go for him. I think of him as like a grade 2 minus, grade 3 plus kind of horse. What do you think of him?
I don't think he can. He's facing some tough horses here. I think he's a little grade below. I think in the right spot, he could win a grade 1. But I don't think this would be the spot. I think he might have a better shot maybe later in the year in the Cigar Mile. That was the thing. Now, excuse me, what I can tell you with Antiquarian, before I talked to the connections in the paddock before the comeback, or before he won the Westchester, and they were saying the two options were the either the Met Mile or the Suburban. A mile and a quarter. So those were the two races that they were looking at, and I guess they kind of went to this way. They didn't really, I think, want to knock heads with the best horses in the division that quickly. So they kind of saw this as an opportunity to get them a grade 1 as opposed to a grade 2 if they're going to the Suburban, which I believe he was first or second in last year. I forget. I gotta look at my sheet quicker.
Antiquarian?
Yeah,
he was second in the Suburban last year.
Second in the Suburban last year, right? So that's what I mean. So that was the consideration. I don't think they ever really considered the Foster.
Okay.
Especially with the contentious field it was going to get.
Yeah. That purse is nice for who wins, right? It's not necessarily nice for who runs 6th. It's like, yeah, that's exactly right. I understand that feeling at least. We move on to the Manhattan. The late pick 3 begins here, another grade 1. This one again on the Bougie Mellon Turf Course, 1 mile and 3/16 for this one. And there is $1 million on the line. We see the return in here of Rhetorical, who is 3 for 4 at Saratoga, winner of the Turf Classic last out. And frankly, impressively at Churchill Downs, we get a first-time in North American starter for Andre Fabre in Bright Picture as well. Some others in here, Deterministic, One Stripe. I mean, Bob, when we talk about grading grade 1s, this is about as grade 1 as it gets this time of year for sure on the turf in the United States.
Yeah, this is a race all the people point for. This is it's a the kind of race that a lot of people don't go to because it's too tough. That they go there, and they did get some foreign representation. It's really a mix of the top the top U.S. distance horses on the turf. Certainly the French French horse is very interesting in this race.
Steve, who did you land on in the Manhattan here? I wanted to point out, by the way, that Chad Brown has won this race 8 times, has not won it since 2022, and he will not win it this year. Because he's not sending anyone to the gate for this one. I would have lost that bet. Steve, who'd you land on?
I swear I haven't been hitting the liquor too early before I tell you this one, because I'm going to give you something that sounds crazy, but I want to take a shot on this, and that's test score.
Let's go.
I loved test score going into the Turf Classic. I was gung-ho. I had a lot built around it. And I just, everything about that test score had just the absolute nightmare trip in that race. Just could not have been wider the whole way around. And the entire way the race went, Rhetorical, nobody thought was going to end up on the lead. Corruption was in there. I think everybody kind of thought that would be the leader. So I don't think the race defied everybody's expectations, how it was going to play out. I think it was just kind of a mess in a way. It was a total mess, I think, from test score's perspective. What I saw previously in the Pegasus, I think is a horse had a much better trip. I think he saw the potential of that horse. I think the distance is something that totally something this horse can handle. And I just love the idea that he gets back to I think a great post position here to be on the inside, to do everything he couldn't do in that Turf Classic, to save ground, pop out and take a run at these guys. And I am 12-1, and maybe it's even going to be more. So I'm going to say I wanted the Turf Classic. I'm going to stick with it and forgive.
All right, test score, and of course 4 Grand Motion. Manny Franco, local guy, gets the mount there. If you're going to play long shots in turf races, especially route turf races, I'm never going to fight you on, Bob. Where did you land in this one in the Manhattan this year?
Well, I'm kind of going between two. I do look. I've been a great admirer of Andre Fabre in overseas. I wish I would have bet more heavily on Arcance, but
That's right. Yeah.
you're kind of more used to seeing him with winning the turf than the classic. But that horse ran in the Prix Gannet, a Group 1 in France at Longchamps. I mean, that's definitely that horse is running against good competition. If this horse makes the transition to America, I think he's going to be very tough to beat. The other one, I'm a little bit on the same page with Steve, with especially going back to the Pegasus. But the one that I'm kind of looking at is One Stripe. This is a horse, I bet him in the Breeders' Cup Turf Mile at 54-1, and all of a sudden he's out on the lead and he's like a closer. I said, "What the heck are you doing?" And of course he faded to last, but he kept with them. And this horse, I mean, if Steve remembers in the Pegasus, this guy was absolutely flying at the end. And if there was like one more stride, he would have won the race. The same thing. He just does. He doesn't seem to want to run until the final eighth of a mile. So I'm kind of hoping here he gets an extra 16th of a mile at 1 mile and 3/16. You're getting a price 8-1. If that holds up, I think he's very inviting at that price. And you just kind of hope maybe start moving a little bit sooner.
I love this. All right, so I have the French horse on top in my personal handicapping, but if we're going with longer shots, am I allowed to like Integration in here? I don't know why, but I think for Shug, John Velasquez gets the mount here. This one winning last time at the distance at Aqueduct, but of course on Lasix, gets back off Lasix here. Was a good second place in this race just last year behind Deterministic. So I'm wondering, with a double-digit kind of odds here, if I wouldn't lead toward Integration for my long shot play here. But I went 6-7 on top here. I do have the 4 in the third spot. Who do you have second in your handicapping there, Steve?
One Stripe.
Okay.
I'm using what Bob just said. I'm going to lean on that, that Pegasus. And I want to take a shot on both of those horses. Bob said it perfectly. I'm looking for a price here against a European shipper who's running Group 1 competition. I don't know. It's kind of crazy, but I want to use those too.
There you go. All right. Well, if Grand Motion has a good Manhattan, Steve Kornacki will likely have a good Saturday as part of his day. All right. It's time for the Belmont Stakes. We will be getting back to New York City next year. So in honor of a return to the city, we will play a game of Bulls and Bears. Pretty straightforward. If you think the horse can win the Belmont Stakes, of course, is a bull market. And if not, we will call them Bears, even though I don't think I would have to want to race against a bear. I want to be very clear about things here. I don't think either of these animals are things that I would like to be in a foot race with, and so we will avoid those if we can. But we will start with Vitruvian Man. And Bob, I have to tell you, there's part of me, and I think Steve will appreciate this too. In the ownership group of Vitruvian Man is a rapper named Lil Wayne. And we have had incredible luck on Blood Horse Monday on the podcast. By the way, how cool are the silks for a little podcast here? Isn't that great? Little silks here behind my shoulder there. But anyways, I want to interview Lil Wayne on Monday. Like, I want to be very clear about this. So I'm rooting for Vitruvian Man, but I'm very bull on Vitruvian Man, Steve. That's the problem here. I'm very bull on, very bear on him. Blah, blah, blah. Easy for me to say. Bulls or bears on Vitruvian Man?
Yeah, no, I mean, I guess I want to I'd be a bull for your sake, but I'm a bear too. It just,
I just want to talk to Lil Wayne.
I think you got to be pretty imaginative to see this one. So, yeah.
The Doug O'Neill special here for sure. Bob, what do you make of Vitruvian Man here?
Oh, he ain't no light. I mean, I was actually there at Belmont Park watching MC Hammer when he had light in running in the what was it? I think it was the Mother Goose in one of the great sites of racing. They decided to put MC Hammer's box right next to the Phipps box. and you're seeing
Oh,
this
oh,
rapper
oh,
take off his shirt and stuff right
oh.
next to rather conservative Ogden Phipps, who is like, I think, wanted to strangle him.
That's a
The old,
bull. That story is a bull. I
the
love it.
old
Let's
Og,
go.
not Ogden Denny. Their kids were loving it. The kids were all loving being right. Oh my God, there's MC Hammer. But
Oh,
no, that was quite a scene. So I wonder. I do wonder if they'll put the rappers next to the Phipps family again. That might be an interesting
oh.
thing in the boxes. But no, I'm sorry. If this one wins, man, I don't know. I'll put on some MC Hammer pants next time I come on the show.
We are holding you to it, Bob. Vitruvian Man will break from the inside. He is, in fact, a son of Vino Rosso Bernardini on the damn side. Power Shift will break from the 2. Another Todd Pletcher special here, Bob. A bit like Vibe in that this one shows up out of a lower level win. This one out of a maiden win, going the mile and a 16th right down the street here at Churchill Downs. Bull or bear for you with him?
He's a bull. I think he can have a chance. I mean, I think when you look at it, when you look at him, you might tend to think, okay, he got put in as a rabbit, but no. I mean, look, this guy ran a pretty good race with Emerging Market. If you like Emerging Market, I think you got to at least give this horse a consideration. He's 12-1, going to have speed. There's not a lot of speed in the race, so I wouldn't be surprised if this guy hangs around to the end and might be able to get to the somewhere in your superfecta or a trifecta. I think I'm not sure if he's at the point where he could win the race, but I think he could be a factor in the race.
I totally agree. I think he's absolutely going to be in the tri or super. Steve, what do you make of the 2 horse here in Power Shift?
I'll be the negative thinker. I'm calling him a bear. I didn't, and that might give you a little hint what I think of Emerging Market later. But I don't know. I think when he had that Emerging Market race, then they put him in the Tampa Bay Derby, and he was just empty. And I think when he stepped up and faced some real competition, he didn't show me anything.
Chief Wallaby will break from the 3. Of course, last time we saw him, he was running a very good 4th place by 3 lengths in a race called the Kentucky Derby. That's a grade 1, kids. Before that, he was running in the Florida Derby, also a grade 1, and just missed in that one to fellow Belmont Stakes starter Commandment, who is also, of course, in the Kentucky Derby, but behind him for that one, Bull or bear here for Chief Wallaby. Steve?
Oh, bull. I mean, I think, right. You look at that Kentucky Derby trip, probably the worst trip, one of the worst trips, in there, and, still finished 4th. There's that whole sort of, sort of reaction there that moved in on him, and he got, jostled there in the stretch and came on for 4th, was right there in the, Florida Derby, was right there in the Fountain Youth. I think those South Florida prep races, I still think were the best, and absolute bear to me.
Bull. That's right. Sorry. No, you're doing the same thing as me, Steve. Means I probably need to adjust the game. Bob, what do you got? You got a bull or a bear here for Chief Wallaby?
Well, he's definitely a bull. I mean, he ran a real good race in the Kentucky Derby. Really look, he had some trouble in the stretch. Had to drift inside to close, and showed some life late in the race. I think he's going to be right there. The question is, he seems to be a horse who is right there, but can't seem to finish the job. So I'm not sure if I like him to win. I picked him to win the Derby, and I thought he ran well. But again, when you keep looking at the PPs and he's not getting that win, but he's right there, you wonder, does he either break through or does frustration come in? But I certainly think, I would definitely put him in my trifecta.
Chief Wallaby, also a bull for me, 3rd in my handicapping for this one. Renegade will break from the 4. Tough luck, 2nd place finisher. You talk about bad trips, Steve. Goodness gracious, you can't get wiped out much more than he did at the start and then turn it around the way that he did. I think he's the class here. I think there's a world in which, Steve, he's also the best 2-turn 3-year-old that we have right now. He's a definite bull for me. Where did you land with Renegade?
No question. A bull, deserving and a favorite. I do, per our discussion earlier about sort of how the track's playing, if this does end up being real speed favoring and we're looking, 5 o'clock Saturday afternoon, I think that could become a factor for him just given his style, but on a fair track, no question.
How about for you, Bob? I imagine a real bull for you.
Yeah, definitely a bull. I mean, I think it was, when you look back on the Derby, I cannot believe how he wasn't really like crashed into the rail. I mean, he had to be a pretty strong horse because he took a pretty sound bump and didn't. When I saw that thing happening, I thought, "Oh my gosh, this horse is going into the rail, and Ira is going to get knocked off." And he did. And the horse showed some determination. He did lose considerable ground. I mean, this is a horse. He was 15th. They didn't want to be 15th. And I don't think he's not a horse who has to be last or next to last. I think he can get a little bit closer here. The only thing I will say, my one concern with him, he did get caught in the Derby. I mean, he looked like a winner late, and he got caught. So you kind of wonder, maybe does he really want a full mile and a quarter? That's the only concern I have about him winning. Again, when I'm saying spots, I would definitely put him in the exactas. I don't think he's going to finish worse than second. And if he wins, it doesn't surprise me at all.
I have Renegade on top in my handicapping. I think he is easily the most likely winner here at the Belmont Stakes. Otinho will break from the 5 Bob. Chad Brown Cheney, we saw him run a distant second behind Further Ado there at Keeneland, or Further Ado, as the kids say, in the Bluegrass. He was in the Withers as well, but before that did break his maiden go in 2 turns. Otinho, bull or bear for you here? This is my least favorite of the Chad Brown trio, I think.
Yeah, he's definitely he's definitely a bear. No, wait. Well, I'm forgetting now. We've got the good one.
He's a bear. You did it right.
He's a bear. Okay. I'm losing track here. We need it. You got to break up the B. You have too many B's. That's it's hard. I get all that. I'll remember.
There you go. I'll just put that on the screen. The bad one. I think that
he's a bad one. Like what I said, he may be a half brother to Gun Runner, but he's the nerdy half brother. He's not. I mean, look, he was second in the Bluegrass. 11 lengths behind. I mean, that doesn't impress me that he's going to be much of a factor. I think when you have a horse with his kind of pedigree, you tend to put him in spots he probably shouldn't be in. And he needs too much to go right for him to be a factor in the race.
Steve, the good one or the bad one?
Yeah, I'm calling him a bear. Just both times he's stepped up out of those maiden races. I haven't seen anything, and also is on 8 weeks of rest here, which I don't like either.
Son of Quality Road, Giants Causeway on the dam side there for Otinho. The bad one for all 3 of us here on the Horse Racing Happy Hour. Steve Kornacki, Bobby Ehalt hanging out with me, Louis Rabeau. Growth Equity, another Chad Brown trainee, will break from the 6. Steve, I'm fascinated by this one. Winner of the Peter Pan. We've seen some Peter Pan winners come back and run really well in the Belmont. Frankly, it's how we met Jenna Antonucci, was back-to-back in those kinds of races there with Arcangelo. Chad Brown, Manny Franco here. We know the percentages between those two. What do you make of his chances here?
Yeah, I'm calling this one a bull. Because to me, it's the kind of, talking earlier, he's handled each lap. I mean, he was in 3 maiden races, but he was competitive in all. One finally big, and the third time, then stepped up to the stakes level and handled it perfectly. So I think he's I don't see any obvious blemishes. So it tells me I think there could be some upside here. And I expect him to kind of race. I think mid pack here, and maybe have a shot to make a move if he's got it in him, if he's good enough, and the kind of price I think that's going to be there. I could see there being some upside with this one, and I could see him sitting in potentially an advantageous position in the race.
Bob, I see this one as a horse that wants a little bit more distance, and he seems to enjoy it every time he's out there, this son of Nyquist. Bull or bear for you on Growth Equity?
Yeah, I put him in as a bull, the good one. I think, when you look at it, this is a horse. You look at the pedigree on top, he can go the mile and a quarter. You look at the pedigree below, it's a sprint pedigree. Right. Yep. So how exact far he wants to go is the question I know that's running through Chad Brown's mind. But every time, he stretched him out 6 to 7 to a mile and an eighth. And Chad is a big believer in the Ragozin sheets, and this horse's Ragozin numbers have steadily gotten better each time as he's gone longer. So, he's optimistic about this horse. And I think, I don't know if he wants to go much beyond the mile and a quarter, but, I think he has a chance to be a major contender in the race.
I don't think he wins here personally, but I do think he's a Jim Dandy upset kind of horse this summer once we get there. I think just a little bit more experience against this kind of group will help him a lot. Commandment, talk about getting trips in the Derby. I think he was in a great spot for a little while. Then Renegade decided it wasn't going to be such a great spot there in the Kentucky Derby. Of course, I thought, Steve, coming into the Kentucky Derby, he was a fascinating one because we had these horses coming in like out west, Patente, one that we'll see in this race with Emerging Market, fourth and third starts, respectively, for those horses in the Kentucky Derby. And boy, Commandment's just different. Undefeated as a 3-year-old, went through that Florida Derby route, raced and won as a 2-year-old. If you were looking for all of the classic markers for the Derby winner, I think 10 years ago we would have just said, hey, Commandment's your Derby winner. We all kind of would have moved on with our handicapping. Didn't quite go that way for him in the Derby here. Further ado, left back for the Matt win. Brad Cox ships this one. To me, that tells me Brad Cox thinks this is his most likely Belmont winner. Puts him in the bull category for me. What say you, Steve?
Yeah, it's to me absolutely a bull, and I was very tempted, had been very tempted to take him in the Kentucky Derby, and I think there were two things out of that to me. Like one was I think I didn't ultimately take him, and what happened in the race is what I kind of feared, which is in those Florida races the track was not that crowded. I think he was kind of able to relax a bit, get in the position he wanted to be in, and make that run, and just he's a determined horse, as you saw in those races, and just got to the finish line, beat Wallaby twice. And I think that super crowded, kind of chaotic track, that he lands on there in the Derby, I don't think he ever really established the position that he wanted to, that he was comfortable in. Sort of wide there going around the turn, just kind of tired out. I just think he's going to be in the atmosphere that's a lot more conducive to getting his best performance out. The other thing was, this is being down there in person Derby week. Talking to some of the folks who know this stuff and see these things in a way that I don't and can't. They said that physically that week, I had two different people who really know this stuff tell me that physically when they got up close to him Derby week, didn't like what they were seeing. And they were saying, ooh, this does not look like a horse who's going to run, his A game on Saturday. So now those people are not up at Saratoga this week to tell me it looks all different, but I'm going to take the chance that it is better. He's just in a better physical condition. He gets better circumstances here, and I think ultimately this is the kind of horse. So he's a winner. He likes to win.
Yeah. It was kind of Steve to not out me as his source there that told him that Commandment looked like crap Kentucky Derby week. It's very kind of you, Steve. Bob, bull or bear here? Bull's the good one for Commandment.
I'm gonna try to go opposite of Steve here. I'm going bear. I think he had some trouble in the Derby. I won't dispute that, but I didn't get a feel that it really impacted him that much. He didn't look like at any point to me a horse that wanted to win the race. I don't know. Just because sometimes horses have trouble doesn't mean they're gonna. It really impacted them. I didn't see much from him like in the stretch when he had trouble. It was like, okay, I'm done. I don't like that. I like to kind of see if you have trouble, at least to see the horse try to re-engage. Which was a little bit, I think, what Chief Wallaby at least did. So I'm just a little bit skeptical on him. Look, this is a wide open. I think this really is a wide open Belmont, and unfortunately, there's a lot of horses who are contenders. You got to throw somebody out. I'm tempted to say, all right, if I'm going to let him try to beat me.
Emerging Market is the final of the trio of the Chad Brown trainees. He'll make his fourth start here 5 weeks after the Kentucky Derby. That follows a 6-week break to the Louisiana Derby and a 6-week break to his maiden win at Tampa. He was my pick in the Derby, Bob. I look very stupid after doing that, but he is back here running for Chad Brown, almost certainly his best chance under Flavien Prat to win his first Belmont Stakes. How much do you have an opportunity to give him here? Is he a bull or a bear?
I'm making him a bull. Okay. Look, I think in general, let's go back to last year. Last year, you had the three horses who were basically untouchable. We found out that top three, there was that top three horses, and then there was everybody else. This particular year, I think you're going to see a lot of horses taking turns winning. I'm not sure if there's going to become a dominant horse out of this group. I think they're going to take turns beating each other. Look, he had his share of problems. Aside from this was just his third. The Derby was just his third career race. He lost a shoe during the race. Then Chad Brown explained the original strategy was to try to close with him. But he said Flavian Pratt came to him after the 7th race at Churchill that day and said, look, the way this track is playing, we have to be closer. So they made a conscious decision to put the horse into the race quicker. He didn't really respond to it, and the fractions caught up with him. So I think it was really just a race you cross out. It was a good experience for horse, being that he's only had 3 races. Look, he beat Golden Tempo before in the previous race in the Louisiana Derby, going 1 mile and 3/16. So I think he can go the distance. I think, I'll be honest, he's the one I put on top because I think he's going to be a good price. I just don't know. At Saratoga, they love to bet Chad Brown. So I'm not expecting he's 6-1, but I'm being interested to see how far down he goes.
Emerging Market coming in off of a 10th place finish there, Steve. Bull or bear for you? I know how you feel about Power Shift. I'm guessing I know how you feel about Emerging Market.
Yeah, I guess I mean, at the risk of this just blowing up in my face spectacularly, I'm going to call him a bear. For what I said, like, look, I don't know. I mean, the Derby, I get it. He was way too close, and I understand the context there too from Bob. But okay, so he wins the maiden against Power Shift. I told you what I kind of think of Power Shift, and then yes, he wins the Louisiana Derby. Yes, he beat Golden Tempo. He was all out to beat Pavlovian. And I guess when you look at that race too, the way Golden Tempo, the way Ortiz kind of, he was wide and then he makes that move to the rail. He dives to the rail, like runs across the track in the stretch. I wonder what that race looks like if Golden Tempo had just sort of, gone straight right there. So there's obvious upside with the horse. I understand, not to hold the Derby too much against him, given all those circumstances. So there's some obvious upside here. I agree that, Chad and Pratt, for that matter, this is going to take some money, I think, too. So I'm going to stay away on this one.
All right. Emerging Market, a fascinating one. Here we move on to the Derby winner. Golden Tempo draws the outside here. The 9-hole. Bob, we go to you for Saratoga experience. Is the 9 prohibitive at 1.25 miles at Saratoga, or is that an okay draw for a horse that's going to want to lay off of the pace anyway?
That's an okay draw. I mean, you got the whole length of the stretch to really kind of cruise over. There's only 8 horses. There will be some speed. I don't see the post as being a detriment to him. I mean, I don't think it's helpful, but I don't think it's at the end of the race they'll say, this is what cost us the race.
Steve, this is one that we've seen the last 2 times out, 1 mile and 3/16 and 1.25 miles. Enjoy all of the distance. We're going to get the full 10 furlongs here. Jose Ortiz riding as well as anyone in North America, frankly. Bull or bear here with Golden Tempo, an unexpected winner of the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, I'm going to say bear. I think the Derby was obviously the day to have him. I mean, at 23-1 in a race that just kind of fell apart. And I don't see the race playing out the same way here. Where again, I just think I was thinking about it because I get so locked in when you look at these derbies at just like what's the pace, what are the fractions, and this one wasn't that lightning fast in terms of the early fractions compared to others, and yet it still fell apart. And I think I don't know, the word that just comes to mind when I think about that is chaos. I just think there's sort of chaos out there. This just mad scramble going on, and the horses are all competing with each other within the race. And I think that atmosphere probably, in my mind, contributed to what the horse was able to pull off. And I'm just I don't think it happens again here.
Derby winner, Bob, what you got?
Well, I'm the same thing. I'm in with Steve. Maybe this will, as I say, blow up in our face. We'll look pretty dumb afterward. But I'm putting him as the bear. I just don't look. He had a little trouble at first. But after that, everything went smoothly. I mean, he went wide. He's probably going to get a great Ragozin number and stuff. But, everything worked out perfectly for him. And that doesn't often happen in horse racing. Things kind of sometimes even out. I just get a feeling everything went right on that day for him. And I think he's going to have a tougher time here because, as I say, the pace is going to be more moderate. I'm not sure. Whereas I think maybe Renegade can respond to a softer pace. I'm not sure if this horse can. So I think if they try to put him into the race a little bit earlier, I don't think it's going to work out for him. I'm just tempted to say, you know what? Again, in a race like this, where you really can virtually, there's virtually almost anybody can win the race. You got to let some people try to beat you. And again, same thing. All right, if he beats me, tip my hat to him.
Reminder, the only thing I am rooting for, of course, is a Lil Wayne Monday, so hopefully that works out for Louis. Vitruvian Man will break from the one. I need all of you rooting as hard as you possibly can for that. Well, Bob, bloodhorse.com for everything you are working on. How the when you get
now wait, can I throw something out at you for today? I mean, we will verify.
Yes, of course.
This is before the 10th at Saratoga today. There's a 2-mile turf race with a horse with steeplechase background. Is he going? I know Louis and these steeplechase horses. Should we go with Fleetfoot in the Gold Cup, in the Belmont Gold Cup on here on Thursday? What is the call, Louis?
Obviously, I haven't looked at this at all, so the answer is of course. Bear is not on the play. This is a bull. I mean, this is the good one, of course. Yes, this is a Little Wayne Monday. What are we doing here? Yes, of course. So go ahead, Steve.
Well, no, can I just ask Bob? I'm pretty sure this horse ran a flat race recently and got buried, right?
No, he actually won. Fleetfoot. Now he won his last on going 2 miles on the turf. Before that, they had him in a hurdle race, and he finished third.
Okay, this is not the one I was thinking.
He's won twice at 2 miles, but it's both. It was at Far Hills and Far Hill. Oh, wait a minute. No, Far Hills and Fair Hill.
Fair Hill. But no, I thought this was the one who recently I saw a horse coming off the hurdles for a marathon turf race. I thought of Louis and thought I would be just as smart and took the horse, and he was like 28 lengths behind.
Well, that's what I mean. This one's 12 to 1, but so
not this one. Okay.
I'm wondering here, can we build up a bankroll? Before
I was there for the 100th Wood the 100th Wood Memorial when Kendrick went over 3,000 with or 4,000 for his career. I think they're at Aqueduct. Obviously, Kendrick's going to get it done in the race today. That is the 8-horse Fleetfoot in race 10 in the Belmont Gold Cup. Obviously, that's happening. Yes, if I'm involved, these are the things that happen at this point. So there you go. Appreciate it very much, gentlemen. Bob Ehalt at Bob Ehalt on the socials, of course, bloodhorse.com for everything he is working on, and Steve Kornacki at Steve Kornacki for that. I was asking Steve before you came on, Bob, about how the LA mayoral election coverage went, and now he's doing this show. It's a hell of a life Steve's chosen, I'll tell you what.
Well, I don't know. I'll be honest. I think it's easier to pick the Belmont Stakes than how to figure out some of these political things. I think wasn't Election Day Tuesday. I still don't know who won. I mean,
I will tell you, we will.
I haven't seen a photo finish go that long.
We will know the Belmont winner before we know the LA mayor winner. I can tell you that.
And you don't even have to have the winner. You're just talking top. You got to finish in the top 2 or something. I can see why you enjoy doing the horse racing.
There you go. All right. Well, Steve and Bob, appreciate you both very much. I'll play some more bad music and we will get out of here. But good luck with all those wagers this weekend up there at Saratoga, wherever you might be betting this weekend. I'm Louis Rabeau. We're back tomorrow to preview Saturday at San Diego Park. We'll do that at 2 o'clock Eastern, 11 o'clock in the morning Pacific time. And of course, on Saturday, 11 a.m. on ESPN 680 here in Louisville. Listen to ESPNLouisville.com. We'll do an hour-long Belmont preview there as well. For Bob and Steve, my name's Louis Rabeau. Thanks for hanging out with us on yet another edition of the Horse Racing Happy Hour. Good luck this weekend.